So welcome to Birkbeck on this Wednesday evening. So tonight we've got a lovely evening. We've got Cormack reading for a little short set some new pieces and perhaps some stuff, some current stuff as well. And then we've got the sort of premiere or some sort of world first. I've got Steve McCaffrey and Chris Cheek doing panel 3 of Carnival, which has never been performed before, but they'll be doing a sort of shuffled reversion of it, sort of live reversion of it, which is very exciting. And then when it finishes, we will move from here at about 9, or we have to be out by 9. I don't know what happens at 9. Paintings come to life. And yes, start reading us diaries. And then we go to the Jeremy Bentham and the evening continues.
Are you two really going to sit down during the whole thing? Somebody has to stand up. Okay.
Let's see.
Thank you all for coming out. It's lovely to see friends old and new. My apologies if I have read any of these before. A couple of things have been published. I'm going to read one in a revised form, but it will be a short set. Because yes, the first shuffle version of Carnival Panel 3 is a world premiere. Okay, made visible. Pages less meaning or a rhyme. Scheme is this word to be. Investigated as research. Prefers more or less. Innuendos, douce tendance. One heart. When once was, indicative, future, parlance, the politic, we speak of, definition denied, access a wherewithal, categories visa, is where you are too, minded, measuring, mishap, or misshape, not cardiac twist, a Da Vinci moment now, studied as is, contemporary once was, when we are within, where we seem. Quantum viz, as much as you like. What to retain and what to discard, a famous and recurring name being double action on principle extended red to amber should be of manageable proportions, imported into centuries. A helmet still in use, direction of growth, classic order, patterns being geometrical, oscillating above vertical, often in many combinations, a bid for freedom, the family business, to distinguish it from other varieties when in a sequence tapering outwards, without state aid. It takes staying well, incorporates form, changed but little after pergamus, whence parchment also came. Sometimes on wings as well as curve extended, against a lining, no doubt effective at close range, being attached to an adjustable strut line, and a point large, the B, large A, convex front, broken by projections or recesses, should be strictly applied to a French term that appears in England, valued for veneering, polished but not cut, a long, slow S, the outward Chinese inspiration, date as well as time, when first the mesh was also suspended, fabric, V-shaped, and sometimes surmounted roll or case of paper, as distinct from wrought iron, that gave way to brass wheels, probably the oldest vessel after candle beams remained in use to mark figures inconspicuously terminating in dragon's head poetry, the visual and plastic arts more and more demanding, the lid to allow stirring, for use in the first papier-mâché on clobbering hood, slides upwards, often with compartments, mistaken for a sunken panel. Not many were made to take a hanging weight. When still not completely blown, process of encasing a small object, the embers alive during night curves extend on red, after that to be poured into a drinking glass, with various devices, diamond-wise, a space filled, means of bedding, the end interconnected members, Joey, Jeanette, shaped to fit, the means of control, overdriving force, pierced keyhole. Examples are rare, the forerunner of poker, brought about by uncertain conditions, somewhat doubtful provenance, used by apothecaries at low relief, sometimes in silk with extreme delicacy of touch. The back often spelt with K on the end, escapement and the hour at every quarter to indicate quality and prevent fraud, operated by stops, place name for typical feather effect, as two brief vogues form a hoop, face piece and bells. Vistas of mirrors were a specialty between China and the West. Durability is notable, a fine mesh tendency towards complexity, meant to be viewed against light, introduction of letters of the alphabet, revolving rings, detail moves in direction for two and no more, often approximate, drawn up. Inside this term, so spelt, slips, powder-filled touch hole, almost uninterrupted, the fashion cane removable, and also in shapes accompanied by a number, time to be seen in the dark, is usually incised under other headings, convex above and concave below, when held without handles, framed within a larger surface, to be encountered, or artificial means in the same place as over a portico, abandoned by the end of next long-bay blaze, crossbars pierced and foreign motifs, degree of translucency, could be suspended before the introduction, one another within a circle, sometimes spelt robate, moves with the hour of political figures, usually made for scientific purposes, pulling heating mechanism, see fireback, placed in a corner, and sometimes given to influence detected for drying ink, served as a reflector, scriptor, is the same thing, an architectural term, carried over, affixed to the spaces outside, turned work in the form of twist, a stage, between curved instead of straight, early turn, or as in a tower, rather than representations, lengthy closures. Between those dates, three sections may be encountered, released to spin on an extremely rare survival, otherwise treated to underglaze glue. It's a description of this room. Neither side vulnerable. Sometimes a defender is forced effect, seldom or to prevent it, was meant to be. West puts up the queen, contract decorative, but came to nothing quiet, can't be beaten position to collect them, possibly a sign of illness, and when to make a play that appears to refuse to go forward. Having done this, East can West's beat changed, not these bets, yet when sooner or later does it make things barely defensive, driven out, and the only visible going on board, an unusual act, circumstances concedes a trick, it makes the place intimate. The form of this can be analyzed. It can show that the remaining question is for finishing a meal off up against where a return by East is absolutely a bill, a score, and what goes on of paramount importance, necessary might come from, as it appears in general, limits the movement. Happens, take this case where South is giving distance, ignition, needs to defeat in four the place at this point, contract holding. There is the virtue of the art. His queen, East, takes now. Let's examine the reason. No hope of getting logic, reaps a just reward, and must decide what that points the way to. This is the only possibility. Next conclude, the first is only chance. Dismiss any lie. This can't be done if South would render me impregnable. Therefore credited before the reasons a South. However, observe its diamonds, that be taken only if the defense is in. Ricochet. In a sense, this should be dedicated to Adrian Clark and his wonderful reworkings. Somewhere, neither boundaries nor recall, curve before disorder, molecules inhabit intervals, detours to migrate over edge, capsize, hold, stringendo, maze a set site metric, as dissemble running ipso facto, compartment calls for synapse, disclosure knowing strata, sooner by elevation foreshortening words, splinter, jasmine, difference, one suture informed, not present, these years asymmetrical, what letters to spiral dispersion, telling perspectives on roundabout, becomes this to absorb, south of non-scheduled space denotes apart, outside diagonal breathing, two-dimensional, demanding straight lines, direction, eyes so wearing its outline, reference, ratio, less coincidence with darkness. At any motion, exit of currents in stopped profile, survives, unfinished explosions. Geography as certainty, since meridian principle, related shape as sphere, multiplies, recall movable rhizomes, clocks, sobriquet, inclusion name itself intact to frescoes, disorder, ink, escalation of momentum overlay, unlikely precedent, seems with fact a winter word, convexity lingering difference of so-spoken movement, of body adrift, or night yields preference, then a signature, a swoon deliciousness, its own visible scene, elsewhere's present combination, since cumulus, as subtracting answers from attention, nowhere local, certainly prevents another paraphrased intention, its own combinatory anecdotes, pronounced bell, spelling afar, echoes, slowed tenderness, here above and below, fissure of sea, starting either side repeats aptitude, likeness, declines forming false sentence to oversight, Braille's lingo, of one beginning formally employed numbers, limits, intense codes, saying so duration, consolation of dialect, compound splinters intact, candid borders clocking with dimensions, sight spoke its turn, any speed breaks easily, taken to translation, only multiplied surface, to view, balancing orders as rain appears alone to locus of angles, distance, motion borrowed fact, or intact to sequence arrive for disparate momentum, seems lingering is prism, is lingering, seems momentum disparate for arrived sequence to intact or fact borrowed, motion, distance, angles of locus to alone, appears rain, as always balancing view to surface, multiplied, only translation to taken easily, break speed, any turn at spoke sight, dimensions with clocking borders, candid, intact, splinters, compound, dialect of consolation, durations as same, codes, tense, and limits numbers, employed, formally no beginning, one of Braille, of lingo, Braille's oversight, sentence, faults, forming, declines, likeness, aptitude, repeats, side, either starting, sea of fissure below and above, here tenderness, slow echoes of far, spelling bell, pronounced anecdotes, combinatory, own, its intention paraphrased, another prevents, certainly local, nowhere, attention from answer subtracting as cumulus, since combination present, elsewhere seen, visible, own, its deliciousness, swoon, a signature, a then preference yields policy, night, or adrift, body of movement, spoken, so of difference, lingering convexity. Word, a winter, fact, with seems precedent unlikely, overlay, momentum of escalation, ink, disorder, frescoes to intact itself, name, inclusion, sobriquet, clocks, rhizomes movable, recall multiple, sphere of shape, related principle, meridian since certainty as geography, explosions, unfinished survives, profile, stopped, in currents of exit, motion, any darkness, coincidence, less ratio, reference, outline, is wearing, so eyes direction, lines straight, demanding two-dimensional breathing, diagonal outside, apart, denotes space, non-scheduled, of self, absorbed to this, becomes roundabout, on perspective, telling dispersion, spiral to letters, what asymmetrical years, leave present, not informed, suture, one difference, jasmine, splinter of words, foreshortening, elevation by sooner strata, knowing, disclosure, synapse, calls compartment, ipso facto, run, dissemble, as metric, site, set, amaze, stringenda, holds capsize edge, over migrate, to detours, intervals, inhabit, molecules, disorder, before, curved, recall, no boundaries, moving, summer. Tilting right in active resin. Is life like this? If a word not in as such. The lie that tells the truth. Images, vocabulary, this. The making of the story. Recognition, profile. Narrative design. Lifespan, what we're made of. The artful edit. Each when that now was, off page, becomes in stance, ordinary genius, attends variables, the poet's companion, extensive, modulated, angles of ascent, impression defers us, American hybrid, pigmented or juxtaposed, language for a new century, asteroids. Language to cover away. Where addition is an addition's framing. Questions aside, question. Eternal rest is a few clicks away. And magnets are still up on a movable wall. Entrance as treatment, differently open to what's in front of the viewer. Direction or directionality, polyvocal participation amounts to this, readiness to arrive. Thank you very much.